Welcome, everybody. My name is John Lux. I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. Welcome to the last edition of Film Florida Friday for 2021. Film Florida Fridays are interactive conversations about current topics, initiatives, and relationship building in Florida's film, television, commercial, and digital media production industry. Film Florida Fridays are free, but if you do like what you're here, please consider donating $20.21 for our 2021 fundraising campaign. The donation link will be posted in the chat box throughout the discussion for you to find it, or you can look on our website. In a moment, we're going to introduce our guests, and then we'll ask some questions to get things going. During that time, we're going to ask that everybody keep their microphones on mute to avoid background noise. After we've gotten through the initial questions, as we always do on Film Florida Fridays, we'll open it up to the audience for questions and conversation. At that time, please use the hand raising function so we can call on you. We want this to be conversational, but we also don't want everybody talking at the same time. We're also going to ask everybody to keep their questions and comments brief in the interest of time and out of the fairness to others that want an opportunity. For those that aren't aware, Florida is home to more than 30 colleges and universities that offer film and digital media degree programs. Film Florida estimates that more than 5,000 students graduate each year with the goal of making it in our industry. FSU's College of Motion Picture Arts, Ringling College of Art and Design, and Full Sail University are consistently ranked in the top 25 film schools in the country. And other schools like UCF in Miami and others also have excellent programs. Long story short, Florida is consistently in the top 3 for industry education in our country. So with that as a backdrop, I want to introduce our guests, and let's start with Ashlyn.
Hello, my name is Ashlyn Price. I'm 14 years old, and I'm a Florida actor. I am with Kelly Page at Level Talent Group and Joe Southwell, Ashlyn Management in the UK. And I'm in 9th grade, and I've been acting in film since I was 11 and theater since I was 6.
Excellent. Welcome, Ashlyn, and thanks for spending time with us. Mark, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Felbinger. I'm an MFA student at UCF in the feature film production program. I'm also an independent filmmaker, and I've done that since a couple of years now. And I've also was a Ringling College student as well in the graphics and art design animation. And also I did an internship out in Los Angeles for about 2.5 weeks in 2014.
And credit where credit is due. The reason we're doing this Film Florida Friday topic is because of something Mark said when we had our education or our student member focus group earlier this year. So if this works out, it's all the Mark's credit, and if it fails, we're going to blame Jonathan. Raymond, you're up next.
Hey everyone, my name is Raymond Knudsen. I'm a filmmaker based in Brooklyn, but I'm originally from West Palm Beach, Florida. I graduated from G-Star School of the Arts and the FSU College of Motion Picture Arts. For a living, I production coordinate and manage commercials, but my passion is directing and producing my own work. And as of late, I've made work related to American football, bodybuilding, and coming of age stories.
Excellent. Jonathan, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Jonathan Stone, and I currently have the pleasure of serving on the faculty at the Florida State University College of Motion Picture Arts. Been in the industry and around the industry since 1992, about 29 years, and served as a visual effects producer in LA for many, many, many years and worked on some cool projects. And also have my own company, Radiance Media Group, where I consult and rep and do some production as well. So,
excellent. Thanks for being with us, Jonathan. And last but not least, Lisa.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Lisa Mills, and I'm an assistant director in the Nicholson School of Communication and Media at the University of Central Florida. It's the first time there's ever been a woman overseeing the departments of film, radio, television, and journalism. In addition to doing that admin and teaching in the MFA and undergrad programs here, I am an independent documentary filmmaker and have made about 17 different documentaries over the years. Really happy to be involved with Film Florida. Thanks for having me this morning.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. And thanks everybody for the intros. I want to take a quick minute and kind of go around the grid here and talk a little bit about how each of you got interested in the industry. So Ashlyn, let's start with you. What got you involved in the acting side of the business?
Yeah, I first started doing theater first, and I started doing it in summer camps. And after I'd been doing theater summer camps for multiple years, I wanted to start going into filming because I liked it a lot. Of course, theater and film are very different, but they're both fun. And thanks to my parents doing a bunch of research, I was able to get an audition with Kelly Page at Level Talent Group. And yeah, that's it. The rest is what you expect.
Okay. Mark, how about you? Where did the interest start for you?
Well, the interest started for me for different reasons. So I started wanting to go into animation, and I actually went to Raymond College of Art and Design, where I did about a year there studying motion design, which is taking graphic design and animation, combining it together. So taking like the Transformers logo from the movies and trying to make it into something fun and unique. Then I went on to going into acting. I thought acting was another role. So I tried to go out for like theater performances. I even had like a theater degree at some point. And then I just felt like going back into film simply because of like watching movies and getting interested in how it's made and telling my stories pretty much.
Excellent. Now, Raymond, you went to G-Star, so obviously you don't go there unless you have an interest in the industry. But so tell us where it all started for you.
Yeah, as a young boy, for some reason, I think over the years, I've tried to figure out why I was attracted to movies and TV. And I think it's just like those stories reminded me that I wasn't alone, reminded me of all the things that we feel and go through as humans. Basically, I used to watch a lot of movies, draw my own posters with sheets of paper, collect the newspaper ads every Friday with the new movies that were coming out. And it wasn't until the end of 8th grade where I started considering making movies. And then really it was by chance. I got a flyer in the mail for a school called G-Star. And I took a chance and went to a summer camp and grew close with 2 teachers, Larry DeCarmine and Robert McClory. And while I was at G-Star, I was very blessed to receive a scholarship from Burt Reynolds. And when I started looking at colleges, Florida State happened to be one that he went to, and was one of the highly acclaimed film schools in the state, and applied there, and the rest is history.
There you go. All right. So Lisa, you've been at this for a while. So instead of how you got into the interest, tell us how you got involved on the education side of the industry.
Yeah, I was, this is my second career. I was a broadcast journalist for 25 years before I went back to graduate school. And I really come into visual storytelling from writing and nonfiction. And I, had a decision to make about whether or not I would go towards journalism or longer form journalism in terms of documentary, and that's where I landed. Originally was teaching in radio, television, and then converted, so to speak, over to film and started making documentaries in about 2007. So, at UCF, we teach 3 different modes of filmmaking: the fiction narrative, the documentary, nonfiction, and also experimental. So I sort of view myself as a generalist, I guess, but the kinds of films I make don't involve actors, they involve social actors.
Gotcha. And Jonathan, as you mentioned, you've had a pretty lengthy career in the industry. What drew you to the education side a little bit more recently?
Oh, that's a great question. In 2011, I had just wrapped up working on the film Hugo and had moved from Los Angeles to South Florida to be sort of closer to my father, who was ill at the time, but to work for a pretty large visual effects and animation company that had started down there. And that company, over time, that company had a relationship with FSU. And so we had started, I was an executive producer at that company and had come down to the campus, the newly formed animation and digital art program in West Palm. And so we had started doing some guest lecturing and some guest teaching, and then one thing led to another, and I just started to really love it. You know, I met a lot of the folks from FSU, the deans, and everything, and just over time, it just sort of clicked. And so, being a production manager, I was sort of dealing with those guest lectures, and then one thing led to another, and then I came on full time and just really loved it. I just fell in love with the program. Building it from the ground up, being part of that. And then ultimately that program migrated from West Palm up to Tallahassee. And at the time, the industry was going through the visual effects industry was going through a very rocky period. And I sort of was looking at going to Canada or London or other places, and then ultimately ended up just deciding, you know what, this is a great program, a great school, let's give it a go. And then I guess the rest would be history.
There you go. Good.
Yeah, really love it. Really enjoy
So,
it.
Lisa, now that we have a little bit of overall context, I want to talk a little big picture before we really kind of get in the weeds. You're the chair of Film Florida's Education Council. So can you give us a little bit of a kind of state of the state when it comes to film and production education here in Florida?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I was fortunate to work with Film Florida and a graduate student at UCF to launch an ongoing research project where we are trying to collect some actual data on film education in Florida on two sides, the institutional side and the student side. We want to try to get better numbers on exactly how many institutions are offering degrees and certificates in Florida, and how many students are enrolled in those programs. This is an ongoing project, but it looks like we are actually nearing 49 institutions that offer some sort of a film, digital media, or media production degree or certificate in Florida. Wow. 49 is a lot.
Yes.
Some of them are public, some are private. Some of them are for-profit, some are nonprofit. We're collecting all that information. We also want to try to get a sense of the numbers of film students in Florida. We know that it's at least 5,000. John, I'm suspecting that it's going to be closer to between 5,000 and 10,000 once we finish our research. But film education is very strong in this state. The sad thing is that we feel like we may be training, the workforce for Georgia and the Carolinas and other states that have film rebates and tax incentives to offer. So it's important, I think, that education institutions are part of Film Florida's effort to garner film production incentives or rebates in this state again.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we talk about good use of taxpayer funds, and right now, educating the workforce of other states is definitely not a good option. So thank you for being the chair of the Education Council for the last couple of years and spearheading this research, which is going to be great. Sure. Ashlyn, I want to jump over to you. One of the hardest things about getting into acting at your age is the balancing act between schoolwork and work as an actress. So talk about that a little bit for those that, kind of aren't in the loop and familiar with how it works.
Well, a lot of the actors my age are homeschooled or do Florida virtual school, but I still go to a public school, so that can make it tricky with finding time to submit auditions, or if I do get a role, then getting out of school to do filming. Most of the time I'll have to record my auditions in the evening, which isn't the best for lighting, but and also I have to find a way to get out of school to go do the filming. So when things are over the summer, that's nice. But my school's pretty lenient with that, which is good. I have a school that has a good performing arts.
I was going to ask that. Where do you go to school?
PK Young, Gainesville.
Right, and talk a little bit about them in terms of their flexibility and their commitment to the arts.
Well, they used to be a really big performing arts school. They used to be known as the Performing Arts School in Gainesville. They still are very performing arts oriented, but a lot of the funding has gone down. So a lot of the teachers, there's only basically one teacher who does everything in the performing arts, which is, she does everything. She's really busy. But we're working on a musical right now. But to talk about the flexibility, most of the time it's okay. Whenever I do things, it's never really, I haven't had anything that's on for multiple months. So it's sort of just like leaving for vacation, but I do have to send in notices about it to the board, or the principal and everything ahead of time, like a couple weeks and stuff.
Make sure everybody's in the loop. And now, Mark, you're over at UCF, as you mentioned. Talk about, kind of the state of where you're at with your education.
So where I'm at in my education, I'm in as I said before, I'm in the master's program, or the Masters of Fine Arts program. I'm actually currently in my third year, which is a 3-year term. So afterwards, I can go into teaching, or I can go into helping out others, or going to the professional route. Where I'm at right now is I'm in post-production on my master's thesis. We have to do a feature film. And so we can do a wide variety of feature films. We can do documentaries, experimentals, or a narrative. I went with the narrative route. So I'm actually doing a psychological thriller / horror. And I'm pretty much doing that. And the biggest challenges is just trying to stay focused with my education, because I have to work on my ETD, as well as trying to make sure that my classes are still on par. Some of the biggest challenges that I faced during production is I've had to go through a lot of crew. Some of them I had to get rid of because of whether they wanted to take over the project, or they just could not commit. And then one of our issues that we experienced during production was that one of my actors passed away due to COVID and pneumonia on offset. And so we had to work around our script, and as well as our time, and also our actors' time, since we also had minors on set who were the ages of 11 to 18.
Wow. Okay. Raymond, I want to jump over to you, and before we talk about where you're at currently, let's get a little bit of sense of your time at FSU. As we talked about, FSU is, it's usually ranked as the top film school in the state. So tell us a little bit about your experience at the school.
For sure. Definitely very well-rounded. One of the most notable things about the program that I love is you essentially, whether you like it or not, if you want to be a director, you're going to do every position on these sets at FSU, whether you like it or not. And it's very valuable because working as an AC or working in the G&E department, obviously you learn a lot about that specific role, but it just gives you a better understanding of what goes into this crazy machine of making a project and this very lengthy process. Also, the alumni network is extremely strong, definitely coming out of school. It's one of the strong points of the school, and that's a big reason why I moved from Florida to New York. For personal reasons, because I love living up here and I've spent most of my life in Florida, but all the people that I worked very strongly with in film school, and that I want to continue making independent work with, all reside up here. So wonderful college experience. I can't speak highly of the college enough.
Great. And, when you and I met while you were still at FSU, and at that time, you were hoping to stay in Florida for a little while, but as you mentioned, you've since moved out of state. What prompted the change?
Just mainly just more opportunity. I gave Florida a shot for a few months, and I was very fortunate to have produced a show about high school football in Pahokee and Belglade. But outside of that, that was really the only work I received after school. And I spent most of my life in Florida. I felt like, just from a storytelling perspective, I still want to keep making movies in Florida. I just produced one in Tampa in August, and I just need some time away from the state. But as far as like actually making a living and building my career, it's tough to do it in a state there's just not much opportunity. I wish there was more opportunity. Otherwise, I probably could still be living there. And like I said, in New York, all the people that I want to make independent work with live up here. I started a production company called Big Blue Pictures with a couple of my classmates, and they lived up here. So it's a little tricky working with them if I were to still be living in Florida.
Right, right. Well, it's unfortunately, it's a story that we hear quite a bit these days, and we're going to touch a little bit on that later. But we're still very proud to have you from FSU, and obviously really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
Lisa, and then I'm going to go to Jonathan. Lisa, tell us a little bit about how film and production education has changed over the last, say 5 to 10 years.
Well, I think that teaching film and media production is one of the most challenging things to teach in general, just because of the effort you have to put into keeping up with technology. I mean, we have to constantly be changing softwares, camera. It's an expensive endeavor. And, on the faculty side, it means that we've got to stay current on all of this. So personally, maybe it's just because I'm getting a little bit older, but I find this to be a very challenging part of it. And then, of course, we all know the challenges of teaching any kind of arts, anywhere, particularly in Florida at the moment. You struggle for resources always, but that's sort of the story of filmmaking. So I tell my students, this is get used to this, because the more you can make out of the little resources that you have, the more successful you're going to be. So I would simply say keeping up with technology and then the struggle for resources would be the two challenges I would mention.
Yeah, and Jonathan, how about you? How have things changed over the last number of years?
Yeah, I would totally concur with what Lisa said. Interesting with the way that I look at it, I've only been in education for about 9 years. At the end of the day, it's still about story and about what's written on the page. And the traditional movie making process has not, I mean, there's been technology advances and so forth, but traditional filmmaking, sans the big blockbuster films, is still a pretty traditional process, right? And FSU sort of focuses in at the root of it is about story. So that part of it really hasn't, I wouldn't say evolved. The stories, the students that are coming in, I would say are far more advanced than they have been in the past. They just have more resources on their own. So when they're coming in, sometimes I'm learning from them as much as, I'm sharing back with them. But I think when it comes to sort of how it's changed, I think more recently, clearly the challenges of COVID, how you teach. My wife is the acting teacher here at FSU, and she's had to teach acting over Zoom, like, with a mat. How do you, facial expressions are everything for an actor, and doing it with a mat, like there was a lot of challenges just with that. And even more recently, the diversity, equity, inclusion, the industry is going through a big paradigm shift. FSU is really trying to be at the forefront of leading that charge here at the school, and then helping our students understand the importance of that. So teaching that is really, instilling that in the students is just really valuable, so that the new young filmmakers that land in the industry, in my opinion, are really thinking about that from a broad spectrum. And so I think that's been a bit of an arc over the last, 2 to 3 years anyway. But generally teaching folks how to make a movie is not really changed too much, other than like technology and so forth.
Well, it's interesting that the process, the outside stuff has changed a lot, but the actual execution may stay consistent, and that's pretty interesting. Lisa, let's spin things forward then. We talked a little bit about the past. What's the biggest challenge, do you think, for industry education over the next 5+ years?
Well, I think the kinds of opportunities that are out there for students are changing, and we have to try to modify our curricula to be more interdisciplinary. While I totally agree with John that the process of filmmaking remains the same, you can't just make films now. You've got
Right.
to do your social media. You've got you've got to understand marketing and independent distribution, and you've got to know how to do your own visual effects. So I think that what we're thinking about doing is trying to create new opportunities and evolving our curricula all the time so that we can meet the interests of students, because fewer and fewer students want to just focus on cinema and filmmaking. They want to do all of the different things. And so academia always lags behind in trying to modify curricula to include things from over in game design. And let's put a little bit in from animation, and let's give our students opportunities to take a broader array of courses. I think that that's the direction we may be headed in curriculum wise.
Interesting, interesting. Now, Ashlyn, you have a lot of your career ahead of you. So what does the next 5 to 10 years look like for you? Kind of what's the path? What's the goals?
Well, I guess my first main goal right now is to graduate high school, and then I want to go into a college that focuses on the performing arts and get a bachelor in the fine arts with the specialty in drama. And after that, I think I'll have to decide if I want to go more into the film first or stay a little bit in theater and musical theater. But I think I'm going to have to decide that along the way. And right now I'm focusing a lot on getting more film and theater experiences in high school so then I can build up my skill for college and just gain more knowledge and be as prepared as I can for college.
That makes sense. And Mark, we talked a little bit about the focus group that you and I participated in. And you spoke about some of the challenges you've had with your education, both personally and educationally over the past few years. Talk a little bit about that and how you're overcoming those challenges, because I think, going way back when I was in college, I always told people that, the stuff in the classroom was kind of the easy part. It was figuring out the life part around it that was really important during those college years. And it seems like you're going through some of those things as well.
Yeah, especially during after I graduated from my undergrad, simply because one, I was just coming into the area as like brand new. I knew about film. I didn't know a lot about like the tools and necessary things. Simply because one, when I graduated back in 2015, the film program was the BA and the BFA, and unfortunately I was in the BA, and they only taught you cinema studies. But the greatest thing that I learned from that was learning new techniques and new skills, and so I didn't have to say, oh, I'll pick up the camera and then say I'll do my thing. But if I was working on, like, let's say Tarantino's film, and if I pick up the camera and say I'm going to do my thing, Tarantino's going to be like, no, this is my film, this is my thing. You got to do it. So I had to learn about their techniques and their skills. But for the challenges when I got out of UCF when I was in my undergrad, was trying to find a job while also trying to balance my personal day job, which was at Universal, working for the theme park. And I had to try to like network, and actually my mother was the one that told me about Film Florida. She says, hey, try to get into Film Florida. So I did. And then from there, I went from Film Florida to the Tampa Bay Film Society, where I actually got my first editorial experience as an editor on a short film that was not really as well successful, but it was worth it was a good experience, simply because it taught me the people that you can trust and the people that you want to try to stay away. And then from there, I started to get into more of like helping out with other independent film communities like the LMAM, which is the Let's Make a Movie group. I was their script supervisor for about 2 years. Then I worked with a couple of Full Sail students on a commercial for a theatrical production of a wrestler. That was also a network through my mother. And then from there, I started to just getting experience. But my issues was, who can I trust and where can I get, the money pretty much, because I wanted to leave my theme park job. I wanted to, pursue more, careers, and I wanted to get more out there. And the thing was, is I didn't want to leave Florida. And I know a couple of my film colleagues, they left Florida. They went to Georgia or New York. And for me, being here in Florida is like, there's a lot more opportunity. There's a lot more, like, you can work things and try to adapt with the environment and say, okay, I can make this, film that if I can't shoot it in Georgia, I can still shoot it here in Florida in a way. But that was my issue, was just trying to, get out there and just tell my story and say, hey, I'm here. Instead of just saying, all right, I'm just a number, going through each of the things. And sometimes I don't get it, sometimes I do. So.
Excellent. Well, I mean, overcoming the challenges is obviously one of the big things of our industry, and it's definitely never easy. We know that for sure. Raymond, I want to jump over to you for a minute. For people like Mark and Ashlyn and others in the audience that'll be getting out of school and taking on the world in the next few years, what's your advice to them?
I would say remain open-minded. You never know what you're going to learn, and every job is a networking opportunity. Stay in touch with people, because that'll pay dividends in the future. You're going to do stuff coming right out of school that you don't necessarily want to do, but I think it's the mindset that you carry into that, because you could learn so much. And like I said, just, you never know who's going to be part of your next project. And I think the biggest piece of advice is, if you want to make movies or you have passion projects, make that a priority and find the time. We all have to make a living. We all got bills to pay, but freelance or full-time, don't forget about telling your stories. It's probably one of the most fulfilling experiences out there. And the only way to do it is by doing it.
That's true. And I mean, your point about getting involved in networking and engagement, that's actually one of the reasons why we started the student membership within Film Florida back, God, almost 10 years ago, close to 10 years. But one of the challenges that we do have, and we talked about this with Mark on our focus group, is that we get a decent amount of student members joining, but very few of them actually engage. And I think it's a lost opportunity. I mean, honestly, one of the reasons why Ashlyn and Mark are here is because they're two of our student members that do engage with us, whether it's on social media, whether it's through email. And so we know them well. And I think it's a lost opportunity for students to not get engaged. And I know everybody's worried about the next job, the next paycheck and all that, but a little bit of engagement, a little bit of effort goes a long way towards getting those things. And so hopefully that's one thing students will continue to do. Mark and Ashlyn, I want to come back over to you. We have some educators on the panel, obviously, and then we have some in our audience. And so Ashlyn, let's start with you. Is there one thing that you wish educators, just in general, like the education process, that you're not getting that support or the help you need right now? Is there anything that would really help you along your path?
I think mainly just outreach to high school students a lot, and workshops and meetings like this one, just reaching out and guiding people from the transition of high school into the career or college. And I just like promoting the importance of creativity and teaching about how acting and the performing arts can help with more than just the craft if you're going into it, but even if you're not going to pursue it, it can help with connections and your confidence and organization skills. So I think teaching, just younger people in the career, mainly people coming out of high school and helping with that transition a lot.
Excellent. Yeah, sometimes education becomes too transactional instead of actually kind of focusing on the needs. Mark, how about you? What could educators do to help you out a little bit more?
I definitely would actually agree with Ashlyn as well, simply because for someone like me trying to get into the experience, it's very challenging. And I know that, we have to face things on our own. In terms of, for me, it's trying to help out, like branch more of the networking without trying to say, hey, go out there and try to make, do what you can. it's keeping the connections and all that I really inquire, and wish educators would do, because for someone like me that doesn't really have, film equipment, I had to like network with people that do have film equipment, but sometimes they're not available, or if they go moving to places, it's like, well, how am I going to get, how am I going to get the help? And just, just making sure that we as students, our voices, are not silent. And like, I know that there's some students that are successful, but there are other students that need help and that need more guidance into going down, this path. So just stay, help us out pretty much, and just try to help us, guide us and network, like say, hey, go to this route, see how this feels, and if this doesn't, then we'll help you, and then go this path or something. And
That makes sense. That makes sense. So Lisa and Jonathan, while both of you are educators, both of you still work outside the education umbrella and do real projects. Talk about that, the balancing act, but more importantly, why it's so important for you to do that, to stay fresh with what's out there and what's going on in the industry. Jonathan, you go first.
Yeah, thanks. It's a great question. First and foremost, if we're not sort of engaged with industry, it's changing every 3 to 6 months, right? So while like some of the process, the process of story is going to be there, as Lisa mentioned earlier, like we have to stay active in the industry so that when we're in class, we're bringing the current state of the union to the classroom, right? And helping to be as fresh as possible. As a just one example, as a visual effects person, that's what I focus on primarily at the college, and Ray might be able to, chime in on this as well, is, I teach a certain process that I've been doing for 15 years, right? And so I've been able to go out and stay in the industry and take on freelance jobs. And I was running a company last year. And what I'm doing is I'm sort of getting what the latest tech is, and I'm understanding what the latest processes are in the management, and then I can bring that back into the classroom. Because otherwise it can get a bit, we can get a bit, I hate to say this, but, it can be a little bit stale,
Yep.
right? And my job as an educator is to motivate students, At the end of the day, I want to motivate them to be interested in learning. And so I have to stay on top of what I'm teaching in order to be able to bring that back to the classroom. And just on a side note of that, I'm extremely fortunate. The dean at the film school is very supportive of faculty leaves and ways of going back into industry. So I've been able to do it a few times where I've gone for 2 months or 3 months, and I took a leave almost all of 2020 to run a company in New York. So, and I can bring all of that experience back in and keep the education process fresh for the students. And I think that's it's critical. And so I'm fortunate that FSU allows for me to do that, and they want me to do that.
That's great. Now, Lisa, how about you? How about the importance of you and your work outside the classroom to bring that back?
Well, I think John makes some excellent points. So to just add on to that, something else that we try to do is involve and engage students with the work that we're doing making our films. The faculty that I work with are all making films. I'm making films, and one of the things that we do in addition to our connections in the film production community is we involve and engage students in roles making those films. So I think every of the 17 films that I've made since 2007, there's not a single one that didn't have a student involved at some level, and I compensate all of them. And, they'll shoot for me, cut for me, help me with production management. When I went over to India in 2019, I took 2 graduate students with me. They were fantastic. So I think in addition to what John talked about, faculty members engaging students in the work that they're doing to stay fresh is really important.
So I want to just add one thing to that is, on the visual effects and sort of post-production side, the other thing that it allows, for me specifically, having been in the industry for so many years, you know, my phone, and Ray will probably crack up at this, but the very first day of my class, I put my cell phone up on the screen and I say, put it in right now. Enter it into your phone and never lose it. Between now and the time I pass this earth, keep that number, because I will do everything I can by maintaining those industry contacts, so that if Ray or any of the students pick up the phone and like, hey, I need some support, I'm in LA, or I will pick up the phone and make phone calls for them and try to mentor them along the way. And so if I'm not staying active with them, right, then, you know, my phone call to them doesn't quite mean as much, right? So it's very important. That's probably 30% of my job is industry relations anyway. So I'm just constantly trying to stay in industry, staying involved in organizations, so that I can, when a student needs me, I can pick up the phone and try to help them. That's the only reason that doing outside work is super valuable for us.
It's awesome to hear about the support and the advocacy that you do for all of your students. And I know Lisa does the same thing. And so my hope is that all educators would do that. But something tells me it might not be as common as we all want. So I just want to take a quick pause here. We're going to come back to a couple last questions, but I wanted to let everybody know that we're ready. If anybody has specific questions they want to ask any of the panelists, go ahead and start using that hand raising function, and we'll start calling on people and in just a few moments. But two things that I wanted to do. First, I was remiss at the very beginning of this to not wish Raymond a happy birthday, because today is his birthday, and he was kind enough to spend time with us as opposed to doing something more fun. So hopefully from here, it's only up the rest of the day, Raymond, but we really appreciate you taking time on your birthday and hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I did have one question. It's a little bit off topic, but it was put in the chat, and then I actually got an email separate. And we've mentioned a little bit of the elephant in the room of the kind of incentives here in the state of Florida, and how sometimes that makes things a little challenging for the education side. And somebody asked, can we get an update? So Lisa and Jonathan were with me and a number of other Film Florida board members up in Tallahassee this week, continuing our effort to move things along. The legislative session starts to begin or middle of January. I believe it's January 11th. There is a bill filed in both the House and the Senate that would be great for our industry. Our position within Film Florida is it's our job to put ourselves in the best position for success with the legislative efforts. We obviously don't have control over what happens up in Tallahassee. We can do everything we possibly can, but at a certain point, it's out of our hands. What I would recommend, if anybody wants to get engaged in the legislative process, send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat box. Anybody can copy it and send questions. But at this point, it's important to start getting co-sponsors on those bills, start garnering support. So we got to reach out to our local legislators, our state rep and our state senator on the statewide level, not the federal level. And if you need help figuring out who those members are, just reach out to me, and we can certainly get you that information, that contact information, and let you know whether they support, don't support, that type of thing, and kind of what the ask is. So the House bill is HB 217, and the Senate bill is SB 946, if anybody wants to look those up.
Well, I hope the students on the call understand that most every film education institution in Florida is behind this effort that Film Florida is leading. And it is so important to us that we can do all we can to create more job opportunities for you. The effort is going on behind the scenes, and we're just so lucky to have Film Florida organizing this effort and leading the way. Gail and John, we just thank you so much, and all of the Film Florida members that are on the call.
So John, I just jumped in and talked.
Yep. Sorry about that, everybody. Internet went down just a minute, but thank you, Gail. And I know Christy was about ready to jump in. Thank you both. Jonathan, you had something to add there, it looked like.
John, it sounds like the internet's still lagging. So
There you go.
John, can I ask one question really quick? Or just,
yeah,
dovetail on
while
something?
John's getting his internet back up to speed, I'll go ahead and moderate for questions. Jonathan, yes, go ahead and
Yes.
say what you
Sorry,
want to say.
I know there's many hands up. I just wanted to sort of backtrack to a question that was posed to Lisa about some of the challenges over the next 5 years. And I just wanted to take a moment and say, yeah, at least for us here at FSU, the diversity, equity, and inclusion thing is huge. We are making massive pushes for this, and and then in addition to that, without going into the backstory of it, but what happened recently, and the refocus on safety protocols is at the top of our list. Making sure that our students are very clear on how we're teaching safety, how we're, that's becoming even more important in light of recent activity. But one of the things that we're sort of making sure that all of our faculty are doing is ensuring that when we're showing clips, right, different scenes from different films, there's the traditional process of showing specific clips. But what we're really enforcing is having all the faculty step back, look at the clips that they are showing, and ensuring that we are diversifying and showing clips that are more representative of who we are as a world, right? And international films, there's whether it's LGBTQ, like different, just show clips that are diverse and talk about diversity in the way that we tell stories. And I think as we do that, it will help not change the industry, but continue to move the industry in a very positive direction. And that's how the next 5 years that's going to be a big push for us, at least. And I'm hoping that other programs, even at the high school level, are thinking that way and moving that forward. So I just wanted to sort of, throw that in.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and open up the floor for questions. Andy Wheeler, if you want to go ahead and start, you can take yourself off mute.
Great, thank you. So I'm curious what outreach is done to the schools by the local companies, by IATSE, by different filmmakers in order to employ them. It's even last night I was on a call with DGA members and Local 161 members saying that we're having issues recruiting, and we have so many empty positions, unfillable positions, and we're trying to figure out how to do better outreach. So I'm curious what outreach currently happens at the school level, and what we can do to fix that.
Well, I'll jump in here and say that we have been discussing how to try to create some sort of a job fair, career fair, internship fair for our students, and bringing a lot of these unions and organizations together all in one place so that students can go from table to table to table and maybe drop off resumes. Other departments are doing this. I think it's a bit challenging to herd all of the cats because they're all spread around doing work, and getting everybody, together to do this is definitely a challenge. John, it's something that I wanted to bring up to you with Film Florida in the next education event that we create, if we might be able to do something like that. But it is challenging. One of the things that can help is if the people that are working out there in production, because bringing in, professionals to teach one class, maybe every fall or every other fall, creates these connections that we need. So I think we need to interact more. I'm not exactly sure how to make that happen. We'd certainly be open to suggestions and visits.
I think that there's a way to do that. You should get my email after this is done, and I can make sure that you're hooked up so that you can create that program. I've done a lot of work with not-for-profits like Stockade Works in the Hudson Valley. I give classes at NYU. There's a real need, and people are struggling and working hard to create that connection, but they're having problems because they're getting shut down at the education at the school level for some reason. They're not able to break in properly, so they go to their alma mater and they get one adjunct class, but then it's done, and maybe they touch 5 people or 10 people, but it's not enough volume to grow the industry, and we need workers now. So,
Andy, if you, I'll get my email too. I'd like to connect with Lisa on that as well, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure.
And some of the people here are panelists that had experience as students. I mean, anything, I mean, I guess for those who are currently students, this is still something in your future, but I mean, Raymond, any notes on sort of finding careers after school and whether some of that happened through school services or found more so through industry sites and things of that sort?
Yeah, industry sites, kind of, not really. It's hard applying from the outside unless you know someone. So I think like cast a wide net, but most of the work's going to come from knowing someone, or like a lot of it, at least for me, started from like just the FSU alumni network, meeting one person through there. And then whenever I go to set as a result of an alumni, I network with people there and then I get on another set, and then it's just word of mouth from there.
Yeah, FSU has a sort of a, we're very fortunate in that we have someone, the director of our alumni network, has been here since the beginning, literally from the beginning of the film school, and knows, I think, everyone that's ever graduated or has information. So we do a report. So all of the, you know, and this goes from Barry's team or Jonathan King or others that are out there, they will, you know, it's kind of internal at the moment, but I think because if there's something that's open or a position or a job or something, it comes through there's an internal network that it goes to. But because the alumni network is so vast, those jobs can trickle out beyond just our network. And so I think that's something that we're doing, and we have an opportunities page that we're posting to for our students. But getting more information from outside sources into the school and then being able to connect our graduates with them is something we'd love to be able to try to do more of.
Great, thank you all so much. Okay, next question we have from William Garcia. William, would you like to take yourself off mute? Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm William Garcia. I am an independent producer based out of Los Angeles, California now, but I was born and raised in South Florida. I worked in television in Miami, West Palm Beach, Tampa, and then I'm basically one of those producers that had to leave about 10 years ago because of the tax credit. So my question to the group is, and a little bit more specific, because I have been following about what's going on with the tax credit, is what exactly are the educational institutions doing as a whole to, I hate to use the term, but to push some sort of tax credit? I mean, is there any organizations that you've formed that can assist in helping Film Florida and other, you know, individuals to pass some form of tax credit? Because I'm just saying that a lot of my friends, you know, 10 years ago, we're all over the place now. We're in New York, definitely Atlanta, Louisiana, lots of work. California right now is crazy. But my question is the education, the institutions. What are you guys doing to inspire the politicians in Florida to pass a tax credit? Because I'd like to go back home.
I'm going to jump in quickly just to say that John and I were present at the state capitol as educators with our educator hats on, our educator pins on, and are engaged with Film Florida. Film Florida really is the leader, and so we fall in line with Film Florida. We don't go off and do anything separate from them. I view them as the experts and the leaders in this. So we participate in Film Florida. I know that John has also had a conversation with the University of Central Florida lobbyist in Tallahassee to make sure that he is aware of our legislation so that when he's up there lobbying for university things, he can be aware of it and mention it as well. In a public university, I have to tell you, it's tricky Education is becoming increasingly politicized. And so as a faculty member, I am limited as a state employee in what I can do. But we are engaged with Film Florida, and we feel that that's the best route to take.
Yeah, I'll jump into, I concur 100%, being at Florida State, clearly a state institution, state employee. It's just being there in the room, continuing to make sure the legislators know that we are training a workforce for other states, basically, without, I don't like to get into the politics of it, but that's just the nature of it. And what we really try to push is, especially at that level, is we want a seat at the table, right? It's not like we're trying to go to a 40%. We don't want to become Canada, right? We can't do that. But how do we just build something? John Lutz and the team they've really constructed something, and the legislators have constructed something that just gets us at the table, right? That will just start the process. And it's a rung in a ladder. Every year we're doing more and more, but from the education side, it's just letting them know that we continue to train extremely qualified students like Ray and others who would love to stay, or they would love to come. Maybe they want to spread their wings and go experience it in other places, which we totally encourage. Go to LA, go to New York, go to Atlanta, but then when you're ready, make sure you don't forget about Florida and come home and make some movies here too. And so that's what we want that's from my perspective, that's what I try to contribute to the conversation.
Oh, no, I work with mostly Florida filmmakers. Darren Bousman, for example, is an alumni of Full Sail, for Spiral. And he did all the Saw movies. I just finished directing and producing Samland, which was featured in the New York Latino Film Festival, which is presented by HBO and Warner Media. And that JP, Juan Pablo Reyes, is an alumni of South Florida, the South Florida area, is Miami-Dade. So definitely we keep in tabs. Another question that I have is, I'm also the COO of a startup we started about a year ago, Multiverse. I'm sure you've heard of it, especially now on Meta. What is Florida doing to promote that technology? Because we were looking for Unreal Engine programmers and engineers and had very difficult time finding them. We did. Is there any thoughts on that in the education in Florida when it comes to Multiverse and specifically in those software programs?
Yeah, I can chime in. So we are, the animation and digital art side of our program has, it's been traditional for many years, but the move over to Unreal is at the top of the list. It has started in the last year. We were on 4. We're starting to explore 5, Unreal 5. But with that, I am at liberty to say that we have recently installed a virtual production stage out at our Torchlight Center. It's a 40-foot by 16-foot massive stage, and we partnered up with a team in Tampa to build that stage. And it's going to be part of a process where it's not necessarily, it's with our Torchlight Center, so it's not part of the film school specifically, but it's going to be open and available. And our goal is to train, it's not necessarily, we want to be able to train the next, sort of generation of filmmakers who might want to be interested in exploring that tech or using that technology as one particular avenue. But more importantly is what you said, William, is, not many people are trained on how to use that stuff. And so we are focusing on really the brain bar side of it, right? It's like, how do we get the technicians? How do we get the artists that can come in and yes, a film crew is going to come in and use the tech, but they need people there to run it. And so we have somebody leading that charge at FSU, and we're sort of probably 6 months behind, but we're getting there, and we're ready for that challenge.
Yeah, the reason The reason
Also, let me just jump in, William, as well. Diamond View Studios in Tampa and their View Studio, they've recently made a partnership with USF and University of Tampa. I know Brandstar down, another member of ours, just installed a virtual production studio as well. And so I think that part of the business is growing, and especially with what Jonathan said and what View is doing with the 2 Tampa schools. I mean, obviously it's going to take a little while, but they're working towards not necessarily just having the capabilities, but also having the education side behind it to have the people to run it over the next couple of years, which is important.
Yeah, and our stage, we partnered with you to get that done.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
they're
They are definitely leading the charge in Florida. So. All right, thanks, William. I'm gonna put you back. We're gonna remove spotlight. And again, thanks to Christy and Gail for taking over when I had to jump off. I'm gonna, one last call. If anybody has any questions, they're gonna, go ahead and raise your hands. I'm just gonna give everybody on our panel just a quick run around the grid to plug anything that they want, any upcoming projects, any upcoming anything they need. So Lisa, let's start with you.
Well, thank you, John. I already put into the chat information for anyone here who might be interested in applying to the MFA program that Mark is, I know, going to successfully graduate from in the spring. So there's a link there for anyone who'd like to learn more about it. If you are a student and you're interested in UCF or just general help or information, please reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat to everyone. I just want to tell the folks here from high school that reach out to the film school closest to you, find out when they are doing their student film screenings, go to the film screenings and introduce yourself to the faculty members and students at those screenings. It's harder for higher ed to get into the public school system to do speakings and events now because, they're very, very focused on honestly preparing students for the testing. And Nina Strike is on the call, and she provided some opportunities a few years ago for me to visit middle schools, but she can tell you how difficult it is to even get the schools to respond and let us come into the schools. So I want to suggest to the students that are on the call, reach out to whatever film program is nearest to you and make those connections and come to our events, because it's becoming increasingly challenging for us to get into the public schools to talk.
Thank you, Lisa. Jonathan, you're up next. Plug away.
Well, thanks. Yeah, same that what Lisa was saying is, any students that are on the call, feel free to reach out. I'll put my email in there as well. If you have questions about the film program at FSU, I'd be happy to answer anything I can or put you in touch with the right folks if you're interested in our program. As far as plugging anything, I don't know if it would be a selfish plug or not, but I was working with a company, my personal company, with a group out of Miami and Boca. That is a company. They do an MMA style episode, a television show called Karate Combat. So it's something that they're doing down in Miami, but they're filming overseas. And I've been working with them to try to figure out ways to bring it to Florida, but it's a bit of a challenge. But a company that I represent just completed its season 3, and this goes a little bit to what William was saying about Unreal Engine. It was a massive stage, 260-degree green screen, 30 meters tall, where we had to do 3 full CG environments in Unreal. And it was something like 4,900 shots, 691 minutes over 12 episodes. And they just completed that work. So my hope is that through that experience, I'm going to be able to connect some of my students with those companies and sort of try to continue to build that process for Unreal and get our students trained. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's great to hear. Raymond, you're up next.
Yeah, I wrapped on 2 short films this year. I produced one in Tampa, Florida called Weapons and Their Names, which is directed by Melina Valdez, another FSU alum. It's about a young girl coming to terms with the loss of her stepfather. And then I just wrapped on a short last week called Prep. I directed and produced that. Jonathan's company, Radiance Media Groups, is an EP on the project. It's a bodybuilding fever dream fueled by childhood trauma, food porn, and acid techno music. You could find info on both those projects at bigbluepictures.com.
Thank you, Raymond.
If that's not a way to get involved,
there you go. Yes. Mark, you're up next.
So as Dr. Mills has already mentioned, I'm trying to graduate. I'm about ready to hopefully definitely graduating in hopefully in the spring. I just wrapped my feature film, which is a psychological thriller called Death's Visage. It is about a teenage girl who moves in with her parents, or her adoptive parents during the COVID pandemic. And when she moves in, she discovers that the house that they actually moved into is stalked and controlled by a demon called Mr. Painter. Mr. Painter is actually a representation of my late best friend, who was a famous comic book illustrator and painter by the name of Tommy Castillo. So I'm doing this for him, since this is one of his last things that he wanted to do before he passed away, which was star in his own horror film as the antagonist. I am also doing my service and helping others in networking. I also forgot to mention that I'm also a member of the Orlando Regional Chamber of Commerce. I actually became a member back in 2015, and I actually started working on my startup company called Felbinger Productions, which is allowing people to get network and socialized, and also working on their projects as well as my projects on films. And I've been helping out others, especially undergrads in the UCF, whether it's in the radio and television or in the BA program. I'm actually one of the mentors in the mentorship program.
Excellent. A lot of stuff going on. Stay busy, Mark. That's always good. Yes. Ashlyn, you're up last.
Well, I guess I want to plug 2 short films. One is going to be filmed soon, and the other one is now in sending it out to festivals. So the first one is titled Lifespan of a Dog, and it's written by Kathy Renking, and it's directed by Andrew Williams. And it is about generational trauma, specifically the Holocaust, and how performing arts has healing powers around traumatic events. And it's about a teenage girl who loses her father, who survived through the Holocaust. And I think it shows a very important message. But yes, we're sending that into film festivals now. And the other one is titled Through Eyes of Grace, and it's based on a book written by Dave Payton, and he stars in it as well. And it's going to be filmed over the summer. And they're both independent films, which I think, of course, independent films are very important to support. So that's it.
Absolutely. Independent films are kind of the lifeblood of Florida right now. So we're very supportive of those. So that's going to do it for another edition of Film Florida Friday. Thanks to our great panelists for all joining us today. As I mentioned, this is our last Film Florida Friday for 2021, but we're going to be back after the new year. So be on the lookout in January for future editions. I want to thank all of our Film Florida members. Without the support of our members, Film Florida Fridays don't exist. If you're not a member of Film Florida already, we hope you'll consider joining at filmflorida.org. If you enjoy Film Florida Fridays, please consider donating $20.21 for our fundraising campaign. You can find the link on our website. Keep in touch with everything we are doing as an organization, including our legislative efforts on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And make sure you listen to the Film Florida podcast on Apple, Google, Stitcher, and the iHeartRadio app. A new episode is released every other week. Thanks for being here, everybody. Stay safe and healthy.